From the Sky Satellite Network, this is Sky Sports.
Welcome to the Bluff City. Now here's the deal. Be prepared to tune your oh-so-touchy engine combination for racing in the sun. No problem. Then 1 hour later, prepare to run the same car, only quicker this time, under overcast skies with rain threatening. And oh yeah, plan to qualify well early. Waiting for a later session may find your best qualifying pass rained out. So are you starting to understand the Memphis reality? And that's just qualifying. Race day, Winston points, sponsors watching, gotta go some rounds. That pressure, coupled with all the typical Memphis weather swings, separates the crew chief, who can tune by the seat of his pants, from the one who has to wait for the track to come to him. Stick with us. We're ready to find out who gets the All-Weather Traction Award on this edition of American Sports Cavalcade. Welcome, everyone, to American Sports Cavalcade coverage of NHRA Winston Championship Drag Racing Competition from the Meguiars Mid-South Nationals at Memphis Motorsports Park in Memphis, Tennessee. All right, a lot of excitement in a particular top fuel pit. Hello, everyone. I'm Steve Evans. It seems at every race we're talking about a resurgent driver and team. 3 weeks ago in Atlanta, it was Eddie the Thrill Hill, back on the trail going to the final round. Here in Memphis, it's the King. No, we have not resurrected Elvis. We're talking about the king of speed, Kenny Bernstein. Now, Kenny actually hadn't seen a 300-mile-an-hour run in over a year, but he cured that earlier today in round one competition. Well, folks, this is the man that invented the 300-mile-an-hour run, but hasn't seen one for about a year or so. It's back.
Oh, that's great. I felt awful good, but I'm afraid we may have hurt her a little bit down there.
Yeah, but a 481, that's the class of the field today.
Oh, Lordy, I wouldn't have expected that. I didn't know the track had that in it this morning. That's great for Dale, and the guys did a great job.
You needed a pump up.
Oh, we did need a pump up, that's true, because my golf game's terrible.
I got a remedy for that. Kenny was right. He heard it all right. It looks like it got shot with a bazooka. You can see all the way through the engine block. But crew chief Dale Armstrong has already installed a fresh little aluminum lamb, and he says it'll run just as well as this damaged one. We'll find out in round two in a bit. Right now for the funny car story, here is Dave McClellan.
Steve, I'm in the Chuck Etchel's pit area, and it's like a breath of fresh air is blowing through this pits, and there's one big reason why. The greatest upset so far in this race. In round number one of funny car competition, Chuck Etchel's took out the Winston points leader and reigning champion John Force. It was one of those classic side-by-side funny car battles, with Etchel's finally prevailing a 5.20 second elapsed time to a 5:25 for Force.
You were long gone. You had it in the sack. What happened?
I don't know. It just stumbled around out there. It didn't really get loose. Just didn't seem to drop a cylinder. Don't know what happened. It's kind of like drag racing. It wasn't my day.
Indeed not. You know, even though Etchel's qualified 15th, he jumped right up to a 5:20.
Well, you know, anytime when you're shooting the guy on the top, which was us, he had to hit his number, and we're still playing chance, keeping us off, making sure we can get down there. And he came around. Congratulations. We'll just move on to Englishtown.
See you there.
In round number two, Chuck has a formidable opponent in Gordy Bonnin in the resurging Candies and Hughes Smokin' Joe's Ford Mustang. But you know, when the big dog's been chained to the porch, it's everybody's day to go afield and go hunting. Now let's go to Bob Fry with a story on Pro Stock.
Dave, I don't know what it is about this Memphis track, but the Dodgers sure love to run here. There's been a Dodge in the final every year here at Memphis since 1990. The driver of this car, Scott Jeffreyon, won this race last year, and he's coming off a great performance in Atlanta. Scotty, what is it about your cars and your driving that seem to do so well here at this track?
I think it's the depth of the Wayne County crew. You know, these guys have a good track record here. We got good log books. We ran good here last year, and we're running good here this year again.
Little bumps out there on the track don't seem to throw you off, do they?
Well, they sure do affect us, but they don't seem to be affecting us quite as much as maybe they are the competition here today.
Scott Jeffrey looking to go 2 for 2 in consecutive years here at Memphis. The driver of this Dodge, Darrell Alderman, went to the finals here in 1990 and 1991. He's looking for his first win here, but he is coming off that strong performance at the Winston Select Invitational up in Rockingham. Darrell, do you feel like you're really back now?
Well, you know, I'm working on it. I'm not going to say I'm all the way back. You know, there's a lot of ups and downs in racing, and I've experienced both this year so far, so I hope I'm on my way back.
Among those ups and downs, you're not counting those bumps out on the track, are you?
Well, a little bit, yes, but, you know, the main thing is these cars like the first part of the racetrack here, the texture of the pavement, they really hook up good, and, of course, the bumps on the other end makes up for the difference, because it stays off the ground.
Bumps in the track might be the least of the Dodge cars' problems here this weekend, because I think in the distance somewhere I hear the rumble of Oldsmobiles. Steve?
The Dodge boys have been hearing the rumble of Oldsmobiles all year long, Bob Fry, especially from Familia Johnson. And in this first race in round number 2, it will be Kurt Johnson, number 2 in the world last year, son of Winston champion Warren, up against Lewis Worden. Dave McClellan, Lewis Worden only qualified 13th, but you never know what to expect from a guy with a brand new car.
This is a brand new Oldsmobile Cutlass, the team of Ashen Worden out of Festus, Missouri, fielding a 500 cubic inch. Now, for Lewis Worden, his 13th qualifying time was a 7:23, and he took advantage of Steve Schmidt's red light in round 1. Kurt, meantime, qualified 5th at a 7:18 and beat Frank Iaconio in his first round matchup. Here they are, the burnouts are completed. Both drivers now concentrating on the start, creeping their way into the staging beams. They light first the top 2 lights at the top of the Christmas tree. That indicates they're about 8 inches away from the actual starting line. They bump their way forward. They get set. Both lights are on. The tree goes green. Lewis Worden had a slight advantage at the start, but it did not last very long. The winning time for Kurt Johnson, a 7:17, his speed 193 miles an hour. Worden, meantime, who had 0.03 of a second advantage. As we watch again in replay, you can see the car in the far lane actually moved first, but it really didn't matter very much because by the time they reached about 100 foot on the racetrack, Kurt Johnson was moving well ahead. He continued to extend that lead. His time was a 7:17 as he crossed the finish line, a losing 7:29 for Lewis Worden. This Tennessee driver has had a very successful event thus far, but still is playing second fiddle time-wise to Scott Jeffrey. Osborne qualified 6th at a 7:18 and beat Ricky Smith in the first round, while Scott Jeffrey had qualified in the number 3 spot with a great 7:16, and he topped Jerry Ekman's Pontiac in the first round. This is an onboard shot in the Mopar Parts Dodge Daytona. You see his right hand atop the shifter. That's the tachometer in Mark Osborne's car.
Staging very carefully, wanting to get maximum rollout before that beam comes back together. To anticipate the tree as much as possible, they'll wait till they see yellow and then sidestep the clutch and shift to second gear as quickly as possible. Let's go on board with Scott Jeffrey on. There you see the tree. Great light by Jeffrey on. And a great effort by Osborne. Scott Jeffrey on nearly got upset. Jeffrey on wins it at 7.15 seconds to a losing 7.17, but he had about 300s off the starting line, Dave McClellan.
Steve, right now, only Warren Johnson and Darrell Alderman are outperforming Scott Jeffrey on this day at Memphis. Here is one of those races that everybody looks forward to. You have the reigning champion in Warren Johnson at the wheel of the GM Performance Parts Oldsmobile. In the other lane, it is the Ford Quality Care Probe driven by 10-time Winston champ Bob Glidden. Warren Johnson qualified in the number 2 spot at a 7:14 and beat Larry Morgan in round 1, while Bob Glidden had a 7:22 to qualify number 10, and he topped David Rampy's Oldsmobile in the first round.
Well, already one Johnson has advanced to the Final Four. Will we make it 2? And the answer to that question is yes, we will. Warren Johnson over the Ford of Glidden, a 7:14, 194 miles an hour. That's a big speed in this humidity. Glidden departs with a 7:21 at only 191 miles an hour. There is the number 1 qualifier.
Well, we have 2 Oldsmobiles and 2 Johnsons and 1 Dodge in the final 4 thus far. That's Donna Yates with a smile for our camera. She is directing her husband, Jim, into the tracks he left after his long burnout. But he does not hold lane choice. Daryl Alderman's got it. He ran low ET of the event, 7:11 in the first round. Yates had qualified 9th at a 7:21 and beat Mark Howick, while Daryl Alderman had qualified number 1 at a 7:11, and he improved on that run by 1,000th of a second when he whipped Mike Thomas in the initial round.
And the bad news for the competition may lie in the future. By mid-season, Mopar will replace these Daytonas with the new Dodge Avengers. They're a longer wheelbase car for more stability. They have better aerodynamics. Maybe we haven't seen everything that Chrysler Corporation has got. Oh, Alderman gone like a bullet. Alderman, a brand new lower laps time of the event. 7:10 at 194 miles an hour. Corey Yates runs a pretty nice 7:22 and wasn't even close.
Steve, as we watch again, this time inside the car with Daryl, that was not reaction time that squirted him ahead of Jim Yates right off the starting line. That was pure performance. That short wheelbase Dodge coupled up to the pavement far better than did the Pontiac, and he just outpowered him with low ET at a 7:10. That gives him lane choice in the final 4 against Kurt Johnson. The other side of the ladder in the semifinal round finds the other Johnson, Warren, up against Scott Jeffrey-on, and here the Oldsmobile holds the lane choice.
You're watching.
Welcome back to American Sports Cavalcade and our coverage of the Meguiars Mid-South Nationals from Memphis, Tennessee. If you like horsepower, smoke, and noise, well, you're going to fall in love with the top fuel category. The kings of the sport, the fastest wheel-driven race cars in all the world. And there is Mike Dunn, Gerald Gwynn's La Victoria Salsa car from Miami, Florida.
Some 10,000 horsepower getting unleashed, half of it coming from the Valvoline Dynamax car of Joe Amato, and the other half from the Meguiars Wax's La Victoria Salsa car of Mike Dunn. This Mid-South Nationals attracting an overflow crowd jammed in under a rather cloudy sky condition. One that would tend, you would think, to keep attendance down, but the popularity of this sport is growing so fast that here they are whether there's a threat of rain or not.
Joe Amato started the season off wonderfully well in Pomona, California with a 475, but really hasn't been close to that since. Trying to get a handle on this automobile is the young crew chief, Jimmy Frost. Now, Mike Dunn qualified 13th at a 4.92 second elapsed time. And in round number 1 earlier today, he met up with this gorilla, Connie Coletta, the Winston points leader, who had qualified number 4 at a 4.86. Now, Coletta appeared to have a handle on this thing, but watch what happens. They moved in and staged, everything normal. Coletta, red lights, and it wasn't even close. If Amato was to unload all his Lucky Charms he carries in the fire suit, he'd probably take about 5 to 8 pounds off the overall weight of this automobile. But if it makes him happy, hey, he pays the bills. Both drivers using the large front wheels. You get a little better elapsed time, a little worse reaction time. Whoa! Mike Dunn was in it all the way. But Amato goes to the final 4 at a 487, 292 miles an hour.
Next pair of cars, you're on board with Eddie Hill and the Pennzoil dragster. Out in front, already completing his long burnout, Michael Brotherton. Eddie Hill, the reigning Winston champion, just a race ago, began to get back the performance that carried him to that series title. It came in Atlanta when he made it to the runner-up spot.
Now, Michael Brotherton qualified 16th, the slowest car in the field, at a 495. When that happens, that means the way the ladder lays out, you have to race the number 1 qualifier, which was Corey McLaren, then in the McDonald's Top Fuel Dragster. Now, Corey ran a 477 at 300 miles an hour during Friday evening's qualifying, all right? Now, Sunday morning, conditions totally different. And right off the concrete pad, Corey Mack smokes the tires. Michael Brotherton advances.
Corey Mack is absolutely disgusted at the missing supercharger drive belt. Plus, it smoked the tires, but you were recovering nicely.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's just one of those things. You got to be ready as a driver. I pedaled it, and she came around okay, and then I felt, you know, the throttle goes down, and the car starts moving. Obviously, something happened. It was a belt this time.
You had a chance today to take the points lead. You knew that.
Yeah, and that's what really disgusts me is I want to be up in that number 1 position so bad, I'll do just about anything to do it.
So with Corey Mack out in round number 1, the door opened even wider for Joe Amato in the Winston chase. The reigning champ, Eddie Hill, qualified 8th at a fine 489. And he was the one that beat Scott Coletta in the first round. The lane choice here, going to Mike Brotherton, a 492 in his first round win, compared to Eddie Hill's 496. Hill well off his qualifying pace.
I'll tell you, it's not just Amato that likes to see those heavy-duty pointers go out early. So does Eddie Hill and Michael Brotherton to make up for what has been a mediocre season to this point. There's Brotherton's front wheels, pooching out in front of the Pennzoil car. Eddie Hill is out of here. Michael Brotherton, 491, 294 miles an hour. Eddie Hill close, but not quite enough at 496. Now, we should point out that the 481 Kenny Bernstein ran in round number 1 was a career best for he and crew chief Dale Armstrong.
That 481 gives him definitely the choice of lane here in round number 2. Bernstein had qualified number 6 at a 489, and that run over Jimmy Nix gave him the lane choice here, while TJ Jr. had a number 14 qualifying time of 493. He defeated Jim Head in the first round. Really remarkable considering the engine damage that Kenny Bernstein had, that he is able to meet up against TJ Jr. in this round.
Let's see who stages first. Bernstein in. TJ right with him. Where's TJ? Going right by Kenny Bernstein as Kenny goes up in smoke in that near lane. A very solid 4.95 second elapsed time at 296 miles an hour. And Bernstein is going to have a chance to work on that golf game. Let's go to the starting line and Bob.
Davis, pretty nice way to debut the new car.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about it. That's the third different setup we've had this year car-wise, so I'm getting a little tired of bringing in new stuff, but my goodness, I can't complain about the results.
Here's our next pair. The engine's already running. This is Pat Austin at the wheel of the Castrol Syndec Dragster. At the age of about 28, he is truly one of the great young lions this sport has to offer. And this is one of those races that the fans just love. Not only is it a generational battle between Don Prudhomme, the Skull Bandit, in his final season as a driver, Pat Austin, the youngster, but it also is between the second and third winningest drivers in drag racing history. The second spot, believe it or not, goes to Pat Austin.
Thanks to all those top alcohol funny car wins. If you ask Pat Austin, who is the greatest drag racer ever, he won't even bat an eye. He'll say Don Prudhomme. He's absolutely honored to race the Snake. Oh, well, he's racing him all right. Oh, the Snake had an engine failure about half track, and that is all it took for Pat Austin to come around at 489, 296 miles an hour. Prudhomme slows to a 497. I think we'll see in the replay that probably blew a head guess at what it looked like.
Austin had qualified with a 490, so here it is in the heat of the day, and we see him improving on his qualifying time. Prudhomme was out with him, actually had the advantage at the starting line and a lead as they passed our Diamond P Sports cameras. But right there, that puff of smoke coming out of the car indicates there's the problem for Prudhomme. It slowed momentarily, just enough to let Pat Austin by. When you get to the finish line, the margin of victory, little less than a car length. So that sets up the final 4. Pat Austin and Tommy Johnson Jr., 2 real youngsters in Top Fuel racing, with Pat holding the choice of lanes. The other side of the ladder, Joe Amato, 5 times a Winston champion, up against Michael Brotherton, a resurging Brotherton, if you will. Joe with the choice of lanes.
Look for a second there that it might be your final strike here today, but you got around.
Yeah, we got around, you know. Anytime you keep digging deeper and deeper into the rounds, that's what you want to do for this championship. And I think we're still in the hunt. We just need to take it one round at a time, and it's an honor to race the Snake. Anytime I can, I want to race him, just because since his last year, I want to race him all I can.
You laid a 489 on him.
Well, that's good.
Pat Austin headed to the final 4. Don Prudhomme headed to Englishtown next week. This is Funny Car Eliminator and Tommy Anderson getting the Al Hoffman-driven Dodge Daytona ready for competition. It was in qualifying that one of the most frightening incidents that I have witnessed in many a year occurred. It was in the first session on Friday. Caminito's opponent was forced to shut off at the line. Jerry had a great run going. He actually ran a 540, which held up for the 13th spot. But as he neared the finish line, take a look inside the circle. That is the spill plate in the rear spoiler system. It actually ripped off the car. The change in air pressure downloaded the right side of the car, which blew the tire, sending Caminito into the guardrail.
Jerry Caminito impacted the guardrail at about 270 miles an hour, the fastest any race car has ever hit an immovable object. Jerry was airlifted to a Memphis hospital. He is reported in critical but stable condition. He is conscious, talking to his doctors. It'll be a good 10 days before a confirmed prognosis can be released. We wish him the best. Our prayers are with Jerry and wife Marion.
Round number 2 of funny car competition. You're looking at the X marking the spot, where crew chief Tom Anderson wants his driver, Al Hoffman, to plant the left rear tire of the Western Auto Slick 50 Dodge Daytona. The reason? That's where all the hot rubber is left after the long burnout. From inside the Dodge, driven by Hoffman, you see the crew gathered round. Hoffman qualified in the number 1 spot with a great 5:17, a new track record. Alongside Whit Bazemore had qualified number 9. He beat Tom Hoover in the first round.
And this is a new, improved Whit Bazemore. Young crew chief Rob Flynn has made this machine a contender. Three-stage, both drivers. Just kind of sitting there. Hoffman moves in, Bazemore in. Bazemore gambles on the tree and makes it work. Is it enough? No, it is not. Hoffman, a solid 523, a whopping speed, 297 miles an hour. Whit Bazemore will not be back, but we will with more funny car action.
You're watching Sky Sport.
Back at Memphis Motorsports Park at Meguiars Mid-South Nationals, we're in Michael Brotherton's pit area. The crew preparing that dragster for the semifinal round race with Joe Amato. I'm Dave McClellan, along with Bob Fry and Steve Evans, and we're on the racetrack with Funny Car Eliminator round number 2. The burnout's underway for Jim Epler and Gary Dencham. Round number 2 racing as Gary Dencham, somewhat the surprise of this event thus far.
How does he do it on a school teacher's salary? Gary Dencham in the far lane. He teaches industrial arts in Southern California, and I think many of his students major in race car trailer building, fiberglass fabrication, and chassis building. Maybe that's how he does it.
His opponent, Jim Epler, had qualified 14th. Dencham qualified number 11. But Epler is having a unique day. Earlier, Steve found out why.
Jim, today is bizarre even by your standards.
Well, it really is. We haven't done so well qualifying here, and the ironic thing about this is we won the race, but now we're kind of on our own. Mike Clover, my crew chief, has got to fly home. His wife is in labor, and I wish him and his wife well, but we're going to do the best we can to get this thing turned around.
Drag racing sport is known for its volunteerism. There'll be people beating on your trailer to help.
Well, I hope so, because, you know, we're a little bit lost right now in our tune-up, and this may be a good time for us to try a few of our own tricks.
Well, obviously, he's got something up his sleeve that Mike Clover never even thought about. But Epler had a big run in the first round when he took out the number 3 qualifier, Kenji Okazaki. The most amazing thing of all, Gary Dencham not only out-qualified Epler, the first car ever over 300, the first funny car, he also has the lane choice here based on better time, and Gary Dencham will be going to the Final Four. 5:47 at 274 miles an hour, and maybe, just maybe, Mike Clover should have left written instructions on how to run a funny car, especially the clutch part of it. Next pair of cars coming to life at the starting line. Here's the fruit of the loom, Dodge Daytona, and the McDonald's Oldsmobile. The burnout's underway. For Spurlock, it has already been quite a season. He's in the thick of the chase, up in the top 3 right now. And for KC Hollywood Spurlock, a win at Pomona was a grand start to this 1994 season.
That is one amazing funny car that Casey Spurlock has. It's the same machine that took him to his first victory in 1990 and his second victory in 1994. I think Ronnie Swearingen, the crew chief there, is almost superstitious about replacing it. Could anything run any better, any more consistent? But sooner or later, they'll have to. Both of them wasting no time, moving right into the beams. Pedregon in. Pedregon up in smoke. Spurlock. 5:25. They really hit the number. 292 miles an hour. Just apparently overpowering the near lane. Do you think that lane is a little suspect, Mac?
I don't know, but I'll tell you, Chuck Etchels thinks it is because he is changing lanes, putting Gordy Bonin over on that side of the track.
In fact, it's the first time this new team has been on the top half of the field, and crew chief Leonard Hughes joked this morning. He says, It's been so long since I had lane choice, I forgot to even go look at it. I'm not even sure what to look for anymore. But I'll tell you one thing, Gordy Bonnet will be good in either lane. He has just wonderful car control capability. We're on board with Mr. Etchells from Putnam, Connecticut, a would-be Winston champion. Oh, you see the smoke in the cockpit. You see it billowing off of the rear tires. Should they have changed lanes? Yeah, I think probably so. But Gordy Bonnet wins it at 5:42, doing it 66 miles an hour. He had his own problem.
Steve, that sets up the final four, the semifinal round of racing here in Funny Car Eliminator, where Gordy Bonnet and Gary Densham go off. And if you're riding with the lucky guy, you better go with Densham, but Bonnet has the lane choice. Based on performance, Al Hoffman is the class of the field right now. But remember, Casey Spurlock has the quick time of eliminations from round number one. We're into the semifinal round of Pro Stock Eliminator in the first of our Oldsmobile versus Dodge matchups. It is the Mopar Parts Dodge Daytona with Scott Jeffrey on at the wheel. His competition, the reigning Winston champ, the current points leader, Warren Johnson in the GM Performance Parts Oldsmobile.
Greg Anderson lining up Warren Johnson. Who can forget the staging battle of the final round at Houston? Warren Johnson won it, but came out of the car hurling insults at Scott Jeffrey on. At least here this weekend, they're not lobbing hand grenades at each other. Who do you think will stage first, Mick?
Steve, I don't know, because in addition to being a rematch of the final at Houston, this is also the same pair of cars that raced for the title at Atlanta just 3 weeks ago, and it was a relatively normal staging procedure. Here they are both pre-staged, and Warren Johnson comes in first. Scott Jeffrey on follows. And as they head down track, has got a substantial lead over Johnson. Jeffrey on to the finals, a 7:15 at 193. WJ falls off pace not only in reaction time but performance as well. His lap time only a 7:18. Look at the start by Scott Jeffrey on in the far lane. The short wheelbase Dodge, as Darrell says, maybe folks get tired of hearing about it, but it definitely coupled up through first and second gear. And when you get one of those cars to do that, that's what happens by the time you reach the 330-foot mark. They've got a big lead. He continued to hold on to it as they neared the finish line, 1,320 feet away from where they started, and by a car length, Scott won it.
I know your throat hurts. I'm not going to make you talk a whole lot. Of 7:15, you're in the final, and I know who you want to race.
We'd like nothing better than to have a nice Mopar final here in Memphis, Tennessee. I'll tell you, we're close to home here from all the people from Wayne County, and we got a good cheering section here from Fairfield, Illinois. We'd really like to do it for Mopar.
His voice may be going away, but his performance certainly isn't. Scott Jeffrey on one half of our championship round final. Here is Kurt Johnson at the wheel of the other Johnson family Oldsmobile. His opponent is Darrell Alderman, not only the quick car of eliminations, he's got low ET of the meet at a great 7:10. Mike Sullivan playing traffic cop.
And if there's a driver here who can match reaction time with the two-time champion Darrell Alderman, it is Kurt Johnson. He is razor sharp. Just an incredible talent for these cars. He was born to the task. That is Johnson over the far side, Alderman in the near lane. Johnson carrying the family honors. His daddy defeated in the previous race. Oh, that's a beauty. But it will be an all-Dodge final round. Alderman at 7:14 to Kurt Johnson 7:16. The Dodge 194 miles an hour. They left as if there was one clutch. No advantage there for their driver.
What a great race this one was, as the two cars left the starting line, as Steve described it, as one. That's basically the way they continued down the track until the power of the wedge motor, 500 cubic inch Dodge, prevailed. The difference at the finish line was only 23 thousandths of a second, but when you translate that into distance, take a look. Our slow motion replay will show you that Darrell Alderman had just about a half a car length lead over Kurt Johnson. The pairings for the finals, the two teammates, Alderman and Jeffrey on, with Darrell holding the choice of lanes by just about 1/100th of a second.
Scott was down here with me watching. He said, oh, I hope he doesn't get lane choice. You did, 7:14.
Well, you know, the lanes must be pretty equal because I run a 14, he run a 15 in the other lane, so it's going to be a good drag race.
Well, tell the fans, you race him as hard as you would Warren Johnson or Kurt.
Oh, yeah, and even harder now.
Darrell Alderman aiming for his first NHRA Winston Championship Series event for 1994. They are warming up the top fuel dragster of Tommy Johnson Jr. We'll be back with the semifinals in just a moment.
Yo.
Back at the Meguiars Mid-South Nationals, this is the pit area of Gary Densham. We talked about him being a real budget racer, but let me tell you, he's got first-class equipment. He just can't always afford to run it as hard as everybody else. But he'll be up against Gordy Bonin in the funny car semifinals. Right now, here is that brand new car and brand new camera angle, Tommy Johnson Jr. And Dave McClellan, this youngster has been outstanding, but if there's anybody that may have his number here, it could be Pat Austin, a contemporary.
They call him the Top Gun, and with good reason. He has absolutely dominated competition over the last several years in the top alcohol funny car category. Austin has had some exciting moments, but none, I don't think, can compare with what Tommy Johnson Jr. experienced 3 weeks ago at Atlanta and the Southern Nationals. Watch the car in the near lane. As it left the starting line, something let go in the rear end. It ripped the entire rear section of the car in two. Tommy Johnson just sort of slowed to a skidding halt. He was uninjured in the incident, but this is what prompted the need for that brand new race car that Tommy is using to such great success here in Memphis. As Johnson got out of the car, he looked back and he said, "Where did the rear end go?"
Yeah, in his position, he had no idea what had happened. I look back over the last few races. Tommy Johnson Jr. has had the best reaction times consistently of any driver on the circuit. In fact, Mike Dunn, a fine driver himself, said that Tommy Johnson Jr. is the best top fuel pilot on the track today. High praise.
Take a close look at the Mopar Express Loop car in the far lane. That's who we're talking about. The Castrol Syntec dragster of Pat Austin staging on the near side. Austin up in smoke. Tommy Johnson with a great run, and how good was it? Listen to this. His dad, Tommy Sr., reacts like a bouncing ball. 477 at 305 miles an hour. Now his driver, Michael Brotherton, has got to put away the five-time Winston champ. Brotherton in the Sequent computer car. A bit of an unknown quantity, a motto with the quicker elapsed times. But obviously with more power and more clutch, he goes up in smoke, and Brotherton goes to his first final round of the season. 493 at 288 miles an hour as Joe Amato lost traction right off the starting line, basically handing the win to Michael Brotherton.
All right, this is the car of Casey Spurlock, the president and CEO of the Too Much Fun Club. They've had a lot of fun in the pits this weekend, but that's another story. Over in the far lane, the Western Auto car of Al Hoffman. He has been like a man possessed this weekend. Jerry Caminito, the injured 20-car racer, a good friend of Al. Al has headed up a fundraising campaign to the pits. They raised in about 10 minutes, about $7,000 for Caminito. And Al wants to win this race for him.
Our camera's view is from inside the cockpit on Al Hoffman's car, the Western Auto Slick 50 Dodge Daytona. That's his crew chief, Tommy Anderson, making a final adjustment, as does Ronnie Swearingen, the chief wrench for Hollywood himself, Casey Spurlock.
The two crew chiefs on these machines are very good friends away from the racetrack and bitter enemies in competition. They really love to beat each other.
High concentration time for our drivers. It paid off for Al Hoffman doubly. How about a better reaction time and an excellent elapsed time, 5:21 at 297 miles an hour again. Here is Bob Fry.
Tommy, that was a pretty good old drag race.
Yeah, it sure was. I'm glad to see we stepped up there. I figured racing Ronnie Swearingen and Casey Spurlock, those guys are tough, I'll tell you. And we're glad to win it.
Quick prediction, 21 going to keep lane choice?
Yeah, I would think so. 297.71. You know, I think we've made 4 runs this weekend at 297 miles an hour. How about that Western Auto Slick 50 Dodge, huh?
I was just going to say that. Honest I was.
How about those big numbers with consistency? And here is the surprising Gary Densham. If it is the Too Much Fun Club that Casey Hollywood Spurlock heads up, I can't even imagine the organization that Gary Densham would be in charge of this weekend particularly. His opponent here, the Smokin' Joe's racing car driven by Gordy Bonin, and this is the only 94 Mustang funny car in competition today.
And that may be part of the problem this team has been having. They really have not done any one-tunnel testing with it. And as you said, there's Gary Densham. I have so much respect for this man. He drag races because it's fun for him. He loves it. If he has a motto, I guess it'd be, driver carries no cash.
Gordy Bonin holds the lane choice in this round. 5:42 in the previous session compared to a 5:47, only 0.05 of a second different. Not much when you can consider that can be made up at the starting line. Larry Frazier standing by. He makes a final check inside the cockpit. Larry, the newest crew member on board on the fabled Candies and Hughes team.
The Oldsmobile bodied car of Gary Densham. There you see the fuel injection system, and the camera moves back to see Densham himself sitting in that race car. Gordy Bonin doesn't sit in a race car. He becomes part of it. I have seen him make runs down a quarter mile that just bring goose pimples all up and down your arms. I mean, if it can get down there, Bonin will take it there. A good day for the Smokin' Joe's team. They want to keep it up.
Up in smoke goes Densham. Out near the guardrail is Bonin, but he's not about ready to lift. He backpedals a couple of times and keeps standing on the throttle. It was not a pretty victory, and a 5:57 will definitely not give him lane choice in the finals, but it doesn't really matter. He's in the final round of the Meguiars Mid-South Nationals. His opponent, Al Hoffman, holding the choice of lanes by a substantial margin. Up in the water box, it is the dream come true for the sponsor, Mopar Parts and the Chrysler Corporation. Darrell Alderman and Scott Jeffreyon, and it appears there's some problems with Scott Jeffreyon's car.
I'll say there's a problem. It won't start. It's either the starter motor or the battery. Now the Wayne County crew is going to try to bump start rather, this Dodge, and that won't be easy with the very high compression 500 cubic inch engine. Scott right now better be darn glad that's not Warren Johnson over in the other lane, or he'd be screaming bloody murder for a start. Still trying to get it started. The crowd, and it comes to life. But as I understand NHRA rules, in a pro stock car, you have to be able to self-start it. I'm not sure this is legal. He really better be glad Warren Johnson's up the other lane. His teammate Darrell Alderman waits rather placidly, just now moving into the water to execute his burnout. He knows that the other Dodge is running. So apparently we're going to have this final round between Darrell Alderman and Scott Jeffreyon. Fascinating stuff here. Starter Buster Couch has made Jeffreyon shut off his car. There you see him trying to restart it. And it lights. He's legal now. Let the finals begin. Buster Couch waves him in, informs the officials up in the tower that all is legal now. The pro stock car has self-started as the rules dictate. This is hard on both drivers. Jeffreyon maybe more than Alderman, but still, it disrupted everything Alderman was concentrating on. May have thrown off his timing. Let's watch. Actually, these are two fairly highly paid drivers that should be able to overcome this kind of adversity. But it is the final round, and you have to wonder if these two cars aren't going to beat up on each other all year long and let Warren Johnson make an end run for a Winston championship. There are no deals here. The driver races the driver. The crew chiefs are racing each other. May the best man in automobile win. No tank jobs.
The lane choice here with Alderman by just 1/100th of a second difference from the times in the semifinal round. You're on board with Scott Jeffreyon, looking out the windshield at the Christmas tree. The RPMs begin to mount. Let's watch.
A tremendous pro stock final. It is Alderman at 7:14, 192 miles an hour. Jeffreyon had him off the starting line by a mere 1/100th of a second, but the motor they call killer brought him through. Bob?
David, not a bad win for the boy, huh?
No, it's real good. I was real happy for him, and it was an excellent run, and he just did a real good job all weekend.
Can you tell us what was going on over in the other lane?
The car wouldn't start. The starter wouldn't work, and they pushed it and started it, and that's illegal, so they backed it back up and shut it off, and then it started.
You know, it's okay to smile now.
Okay.
As we watch this race again in replay, Scott Jeffrion got a very slight advantage at the start, but it really made no difference because it was a substantial performance margin that went Alderman's way. The thing to note here, though, all the problems he had in starting his race car had no effect on Scott Jeffrion's ability to leave the starting line on time. A great job keeping concentration. Steve?
The sun is glistening off of those teeth. I can't see. It's Darrell Alderman. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks a lot. You know, this is my first national event this year, and, you know, and for both the Mopars to be in the final, it's just great.
I thought we were going to have to call the Auto Club for your buddy.
I don't really know what happened there. I think they got him started, though, and I don't know if it affected the performance of the car or not, but, you know, we've been running pretty equal all day.
This will be a confidence builder from the man from Kentucky. David?
Not only does it build confidence, Steve, but it helps in the Winston points chase. Warren Johnson is still the leader, followed by Jeffrion. Then comes Darrell Alderman. Kurt Johnson is fourth. Jim Yates rounds out the top five.
I don't think I've ever seen Al Hoffman so intent on winning. Leonard Hughes would like to win one too, but Hoffman it's been his day. He knows that he should win. Not only for the points, not only for the money, but obviously for his good friend Jerry Caminito. We've talked about that earlier in the show. The body up on the Hoffman car, that's business as usual, making whatever adjustments it is they do. Tommy Anderson latches it down. Anderson has done a masterful job of adapting this car and Al Hoffman to this ever-changing racetrack. Gordy Bonnet, he's just a winner in life. I don't care what you put him in. Somehow, someday, he will figure how to win with it. Whether it's this afternoon, I have my doubts. There's Hoffman. You're on board with him. And look out the left window. There's Bonnet. Bonnet wins it on a whole shot. Gordy Bonnet's 5:33 beats Al Hoffman's 5:31. Like I said, he's just a winner in life. Let's go to the starting line and Bob Fry again.
Leonard Hughes has captured the win. Leonard, way to go.
Well, they just kept giving it to us every round. I mean, we're not running that good. We just kept hanging in. They just kept giving it to us.
You're not going to give it back, are you?
No, I don't think so. It's been a while.
While Leonard may be thinking they're giving the wins to him, I would say Gordy Bonnet earned this one. He had about a 2/100th of a second advantage off the starting line. Al Hoffman had about a 2/100th of a second advantage in performance. At the finish line, the margin of victory literally was inches and was 0.02 of a second. Steve?
And Gordy, you have made many a deposit into the drag racing luck bank. Today you made a couple of withdrawals. Fair is fair.
I guess fair is fair, Steve. Damn. Smoking Joe's team, everybody back in Winston-Salem, thank you for your support. We just, obviously we could have put this thing together without them and without the Ford folks and Paul and Leonard. Goodyear, I mean, they're all here for a reason.
Were you sure you had won? It was 0.02 of a second.
I had no clue. It was the same as the first round. I didn't know who won. I saw Scusa's car first round until the last second, and I heard Al right there, and when I shut off, his nose was right there. I thought, man, did I shut this thing off too early for the first time ever? But when luck's with you, it's with you, and today it's with you. Thank God.
Amen. Dave McClellan?
Hi, Mom and Dad.
Steve, that's one of those races that'll be remembered for years to come. John Force has a very slight lead over Al Hoffman in the Winston points chase. They are followed by Casey Spurlock, Chuck Etchells, and Dean Scusa. Back at the Memphis starting line, it's time for Top Fuel, and you are looking at Tommy Johnson Jr. What a dramatic in-car camera shot as Johnson is at the controls of the Mopar Express Lube car. His opponent, Michael Brotherton, driving the Sequent computers, Wiltel Communications entry, and that's his crew chief, the very talented Larry Meyer, checking over the engine for the final time.
Dave, win or lose, Tommy Johnson Jr. gets my official Driver of the Race award. He has literally left on everyone he's faced. His reaction times are phenomenal at every race this year, even with the large diameter front wheels, which make your reaction times look worse on paper. That don't much affect Tommy Johnson Jr. Michael Brotherton and Larry Meyer, well, this may be where they hit their stride. As I said before, first final of the year for both of these drivers. Davey Settles, the crew chief for Tommy Johnson Jr., has himself been amazed at the performance of the car. Tommy Johnson, 4.88 seconds. Michael Brotherton right there to 491. Well, actually, Tommy had 0.07 of a second whole shot. That's embarrassing for Brotherton.
To the quickest go all the riches, and in this case, it was Tommy Johnson Jr. at both ends of the racetrack. Much quicker off the starting line than Brotherton, and at the finish line, a great 488 at 296 gives Tommy Johnson Jr. the victory at Memphis. Steve?
He should be applauding himself. You were on the lights, Settles was on the combination, and here we are.
It was a terrific day, Steve. Everything went right for us. The car ran perfectly. Settles and the crew, they did a great job. You know, I'd like to dedicate this win to a good friend of mine who got killed in a car wreck a few weeks ago, Aaron Brown, a racer at home. And I just thank my guys, man. They did a great job. It was a hot day, and we worked hard, changing engines and a lot of parts. Mopar Express Lube, there's another victory for you, baby.
I'm going to get out of here before his family shows up. They will be wild. Dave?
Steve, the Johnson family has been known to celebrate. In the Winston Points chase, it's Connie over Scott, the Coletta clan at the top of the list, followed by Corey Mack, Joe Amato, and Don Prudhomme. Well, that wraps it up for us from Memphis, Tennessee, and the Meguiars Mid-South Nationals. For Bob Fry and Steve Evans, I'm Dave McClellan saying so long for now.